In the words of a behavioral pioneer, all we need to know in order to describe and explain behavior is this: actions followed by good outcomes are likely to recur, and actions followed by bad outcomes are less likely to recur. The words of B.F. Skinner back in 1953. Now you know what Burris Frederick Skinner knew. So, here's your situation. At a multi-family gathering, everyone sits down to dinner for a hearty bowl of cabbage soup. Yummy. At the kids' table, one youngster imitates another who burped. Other kids at the table giggle. Both sets of parents respond with verbal chastisement. Stop that! No more! One youngster does indeed stop the behavior, letting the gas exit silently. But the other one continues to make elongated belches, again followed by the parent's comments. Why do you keep doing that? Are you uncivilized? Why can't you be like Robin? Robin knows when to stop, etc., etc., ad infinitum, ad nauseum. What accounts for the differences here? Let's use the ABC paradigm. What's the antecedent, the behavior of concern, and the consequences for each youngster's behaviors? What factors might be influencing the child's behaviors? Pause the program and think about the responses of the two youngsters to the reaction of others, other kids, and the parents. Restart when you've got it figured out. The expanding gas from the digestion of the cabbage will bring on other noises later, but in the present situation, it's the antecedent, the A, that brings on the B, a burp, followed by C, the giggles of the table mates and the chastisement of the parents. So, why does one youngster cease the behavior while the other one continues? Remember, you were supposed to wipe your brain slates clean of those false reasons. You now know that behaviors are all about gaining rewards or avoiding punishments. Let's look first at the young one who continues burping. What would be the payoff for the behavior? Giggles, peer acceptance outweighing parental approval. Perhaps our greatest human psychological need is to belong, to be accepted and valued by highly perceived others, to be emotionally intertwined with important people in our lives. The peer group is always important. It may actually trump the importance of parents as the teen years ensue. Or it could be that the parent's chastisement, intended to be punishment for the behavior, is actually a reward, a reinforcer. What? For youngsters who don't receive much positive guidance in learning appropriate behaviors, any attention from parents beats none at all. By getting a negative response from the adult, the kid thinks, hey, at least I exist and I influence my world. Misbehavior brings what unnoticed or unrewarded appropriate behavior does not: a sense of belonging. While the misbehavior didn't bring that desired, loving, and nurturing parental response, it does bring the trappings of belonging. Somebody looks at you. Somebody talks to you. They give you guidance. The youngster wishes that it were more pleasant, but at least it's attention from a valued other. This peskiness is a powerful thing. It gets the attention of the parent. The youngster uses what works, and will continue using it until the parent starts to positively recognize appropriate behavior. You know, in that situation, it could be that the youngster has a skill deficit, being unable, at present, to show the expected behavior. In that case, we need to practice it, recognize it positively, prompt its use, and then reinforce it. Another possibility here is that the youngster, if he or she is older, is expressing his anger at the parents by irritating them. Why, though, did the other youngster cease and desist when told to do so? could be that he or she was avoiding further parental disapproval or greater punishment from the parents, if that escalation in power is common in the household. The quiet expelling of gas keeps away a negative thing. The silent version of the behavior is negatively reinforced. Perhaps this kid knows what to do from an earlier training or approval of correct behavior at home. It's a practice response then to the parental reminder. In order to determine which influence applies in this situation, we must collect and consider additional information, eliminating those possibilities as the evidence stacks against them, and looking more closely at other ones that seem plausible under these circumstances. So, when a fellow parent asks you, "Why does my kid keep doing that?" you know the answer. Because it works. It brings a benefit. Then you might hear, "But most of the time it doesn't." When you hear this statement, think of regular customers at a gambling casino. Why do they keep showing the same behavior, putting their money on the table or in the slot machine, even when they lose almost all the time? It's because they believe that the next time might be the charmed one, the display of that action that brings the payoff. It's the same for kids. They show the behavior because once in a while it pays off. The sporadic, you never know when schedule of getting rewarded is the most powerful behavior maintainer. The behavior got built somehow, and the periodic attention to it is all that's needed to keep it going strong. How do we counter this? Well, initially when we're building a new behavior, we catch the child being good each and every time with great drama. Once the behavior is mastered, the once-in-a-while schedule of reinforcement is the most powerful for promoting its presence. Be sure, though, that the new behavior meets the youngster's need for attention, power, sensory stimulation, fun, food, whatever it is that motivates that youngster to show the earlier behavior. The new behavior has to meet that need to a greater degree than the previous one. Otherwise, they'll stick with the old ways. We'll delve deeper into the nuts and bolts regarding how to change negative patterns of behavior in the chapters that follow. Talking about once in a while, how do we explain the behaviors that happen a lot in situations, but not all the time? How do we explain, for example, the willingness of a youngster to brush the teeth after meals sometimes, but not at other post-meal times? What could account for the difference in responses to the same situation? Usually these variances can be explained by what is called setting events, things that sensitize a kid to the situation, varying influences that precede, that come before the toothbrushing time. What are some of the things that might happen before the time to brush the teeth that could affect the level of cooperation in the child? Pause the program and think of a few possibilities like, the older sibling didn't brush her teeth when she ran out of the house to jump in the horn-honking car of waiting teammates on the way to the big game. How'd you do? A couple of influences on the long list of possibilities are the flavor of the toothpaste, which parent gives the direction to brush, whether the child is tired and a bit cranky at that moment, how strong is the desire to do something else right now, do the gums hurt, and a slew of other possibilities. Savvy parents are always setting the stage, so to speak, trying to provide setting events that enhance the chances of the youngster showing the appropriate behavior, and planning around those setting events that might destroy motivation to comply with the direction. There is one more common causation for the behaviors we witness: modeling. It's human nature to try out behaviors that we see working well for others. I was building sandcastles on the beach with my children, building them from the bottom up. Down the stairs to the beach come a man and his daughter. They make an enormous packed pile of damp sand and proceed to carve out bridges, parapets, spires, arches, and moats. We took a long look at the other kingdom's palace and vowed on the spot to bring a work shovel next time. Now, carrying a yard shovel over the shoulder is part of our modus operandi on beach days. Part of this imitative aspect of human nature is neurological. Our brains are designed to notice effective behavior and engage in imitation of it. The other part is behavioral. We want the rewards that we see others receiving, so we do what they do. Kids are the best imitators. Their minds are agile, and they're seeking solutions for situations in their lives. They are the most influenced by role models. This recognition has enormous implications for child rearing. Parents who are proficient in raising well-behaved kids are diligent in exposing their children to good role models and cutting off access to poor ones. Our family made the very difficult choice of cutting one family out of our social circle. We liked them, but we could not allow our child to be exposed to the certain behaviors of their child. Like all young children, there were problems with sharing and screams of, "It's mine! I had it first!" Our approach involved informing the arguing children that if the object of desire was going to continue to be available to them, then they needed to figure out how to solve the problem. Take turns, share, one person doing something else, whatever it might be. Otherwise, the object gets timed out. Unfortunately, physical aggression was oftentimes the response of the other child, before and after our problem-solving sessions. When hitting happened, the other parents would sit at the table while we intervened. Upon our return, they'd tell us that the aggression reflected her inborn temperament, or that they were that way when they were kids. Well, after several play dates during which aggression was shown, and I guess we're slow learners, we cut the connection. Our kids are not punching bags for other kids, and we don't want them to start using this behavior to get their way. Several years later, we hear that teachers are now struggling to address this child's behavior in the classroom. So, why didn't that girl in the story emulate my daughter's ways and follow the problem-solving procedures that we promoted? Would you like to take a moment to think about it? If so, pause the program now. In order for a behavior to become ingrained, it has to be taught and consistently prompted. An effort to show that behavior gets rewarded with praise, hugs, smiles, or whatever motivates the youngster. While violence didn't pay off in our house, due to our quick response of giving attention to the victim and removing the prize, in most parts of the former playmate's life space, aggression worked for her. So, why do kids often emulate negative behavior when they've also witnessed the positive? Why does inappropriate action often supersede appropriate when both are in play? A number of factors influence whether behavior is imitated. Would you care to take a moment to think of a few? If so, pause the program now. Here are the important players in determining whether a behavior will be emulated by others. The status of the model. Family members are high prestige role models. Similar behavior patterns are found among siblings. Are you a good role model? Or do you argue loudly, find fault with others easily, use curse words, or use electronic devices while seated at the dinner table? Do you use bullying and overpowering of others to get your way? do you speak negatively of others? Are you allowing your kids to watch and emulate others with negative behavior in movies, music videos, etc.? Now, I realize that evil is found even in most children's stories in order to challenge the hero or heroine. But it's important to mediate the message for the kids. Are you pointing out the positive character traits of the hero or heroine? Courage, honesty, compassion? Or simply saying things like, "Did you see what Dr. Disaster did to the others? Wow, he'd do anything for money and power." Your kids are watching and listening. Another factor in the modeling equation is the eye-catching appeal of the behavior. Negative behavior is usually more attention-getting, drawing attention to it more so than run-of-the-mill appropriate actions. Also, negative behavior tends to bring immediate results and a greater impact on the situation. Showing appropriate behavior often goes unnoticed, or the reward comes much later in the form of a nice review comment. We also need to consider whether a reward follows the action and the value of the reward to the observer. Behavior that results in obtaining what the watcher wants is likely to be mimicked by the child who saw it. The ability to perform the action is important to note also. The observer might admire the action, but recognize that he or she does not have the skill to perform it. Finally, the benefits versus drawbacks of displaying the behavior will have an influence on whether the observer engages in the action. The kid who is watching is thinking, how often will that behavior work? What else might follow it? What else might happen sometimes? I personally can't see any drawbacks to taking the upcoming quiz or engaging in the activities that follow. Let's emulate those behaviors of successful learners.